No one can say that it's been boring when you have a president running for re-election against a former president. And now some key Iowa leaders are in some high-profile moments because of everything going on. Hi, and welcome to Inside Iowa Politics. I'm Dave Price, the political director for Gray Television's Iowa stations. Next Monday, former President Donald Trump's control of the Republican Party nationally will be on full display. Milwaukee hosts the Republican National Convention, where Trump officially becomes the party's nominee again. And a few Iowa leaders will have some prominent roles there. A few others will not. We'll talk about that in a bit. But Trump has taken over the RNC, pushing out the previous leader, bringing in his daughter-in-law, putting together the new party platform in secrecy instead of out in the open like it's been done traditionally for the public to see. Meanwhile, current President Joe Biden tries to keep his re-election efforts alive to try to get to his party's national convention. That's next month in Chicago. Now, his performance during his first presidential debate has put his campaign in chaos. More than a dozen members of Congress from his own party have been alarmed by his confused debate performance. They've seen the national polls showing more than 2 in 3 Americans do not think Biden is fit for the job as president anymore. And those congressional Democrats have publicly called for Biden to step aside. Now, Iowa Senator Chuck Grassley's a Republican. He's known Biden for decades, and he's a decade older than Biden. I asked him whether he thinks that Biden has declined too much to be trusted with the job as president until he's 86.
You have known Joe Biden for decades from your time in the Senate serving with him. In your mind, is he still fit to do the job? And how do Americans judge something like that when age is such a sensitive topic, but we're talking about such an important role?
Before I answer the question, I have said this many times, but it's more dealing with Biden policy than it is anything else you've recently been reading about Biden. If he were serving as president of the United States like he did in the United States Senate, and he was very much a person willing to work in bipartisan ways on legislation, and out of my 44 years in the Senate, I think I spent about 26 or 28 years with Biden, and sometimes he was chairman. And I found myself working with him in a bipartisan way. But you can see that he ran on a platform of bringing the country together, but he's administered law and policy out of the White House in a very partisan way and extremely a progressive way that doesn't fit what he did as a senator. Now, to answer your question, I think that I should probably answer your same way as I do to journalists here in Washington, D.C. I'm not going to dump on Biden either about whether he's capable of doing it or what his staff has done to presumably protect him. That's a family matter for the Democrats. It's a family matter for the Bidens. So I'm going to concentrate on attacking his bad policies, and I'll just name 2. But I think the cost of living has gone up because of his inflation, Biden inflation.
For context, the economists I've spoken with say that it is not accurate to say that higher federal spending during Biden's administration is solely responsible for inflation. Yes, there has been higher spending, but there are also those previous tax cuts under the Trump administration, and those put more available money into the economy. Plus, there were those COVID-19 supply chain disruptions and wage growth that also increased inflation. Now, Grassley's other criticism against Biden was about not better securing the border and protecting migrant children. Grassley then added this final point about Biden's fitness for office.
So I'm going to concentrate on bad Biden policy and leave the rest of it to the Democrats to figure out for themselves.
Time now for the Inside Iowa Politics Final Five. Number one, chair's chance. It's a high-profile moment in Milwaukee as the Iowa Republican Party chair, Jeff Kaufman, gets to announce that the Iowa delegates will support Trump. That officially puts Trump over the threshold so that he can clinch the party's nomination. Kaufman stayed neutral leading up to the Iowa caucuses. His son, Bobby, worked for the Trump campaign. Number two, Byrd's time. Now, Iowa Attorney General Brenna Byrd was the only Republican statewide official to endorse Trump before the caucuses. Trump, you'll remember, said that she would make a good governor. And Byrd gets a high-profile moment to speak at the convention. She's also been raising her own profile lately, holding a lot more news conferences. Really, since she's been in office, she has filed dozens of lawsuits coming after the Biden administration. She has been a top Trump supporter in this state. Number three, governor's time. As far as we know, Iowa Governor Kim Reynolds does not get to speak at the Republican National Convention. We also know that she did not endorse Trump before the caucuses. She instead publicly supported Trump's rival, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, and that damaged the relationship between Trump and Reynolds, even though Reynolds later had publicly said that she would support Trump really when the race was over. That's a dynamic to watch still in the months ahead, but it looks like she's left out of the convention. Number four, looking ahead, speaking of the governor, she's not announced her plans for 2026. Is she going to run again? But this dynamic now about whether Reynolds will run again and what Brenna Byrd will do is something to watch, and the relationship between these two Iowa leaders as they make that decision. Speaking of decisions, number five, Democrats' decisions. This is the tough one for Iowa Democrats. Should they continue to support Joe Biden's reelection efforts, or is it time to say that Biden should step aside? We've already seen two of the Democrats running for the U.S. House, both Christina Bohannon in the 1st District, Sarah Corkery in the 2nd District. They both said that Biden should step aside. A key time to demonstrate leadership for some Iowa leaders, regardless of what they think about President Biden. But will they choose to speak publicly, to answer questions, to let Iowans know what they're thinking, or will they continue to hide and stay silent despite repeated requests for them to express an opinion about this? Definitely something to watch. Thanks for joining us.